Welcome to Decision Makers, our frequent conversation with policymakers, prognosticators, and experts offering us the latest insights and perspectives on a wide range of issues. This session, we have a conversation with Mississippi State Representative Jeffrey Hulum III, who represents the Magnolia State's 119th Legislative District. He joins us as part of our continuing Decision Makers State Legislator Communities of Color series, which we do often in conjunction with the Council of State Governments Eastern Region. We appreciate you being here, Representative. So thanks for your time.
And I thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, appreciate that. Thank you. So we're about to head into a new year. And what are policy priorities from your perspective for the Mississippi State Legislature heading into that new session?
Some of the most important things we're going to be looking at this year is our taxes. Then we have this school choice that's heavy on our radar. Then we got healthcare from the standpoint of Medicaid expansion. Then we're also going to be looking at some voting rights initiatives. We need to look at some ballot initiatives. And then we also was going to take our hand in seeing about taxes overall because, you know, the governor wants to eliminate the state income tax. So we also have to see how that fares well with not just the climate, but the wages and living wages we have in the state of Mississippi.
Wow. Yeah. So getting rid of the state income tax, I mean, how does that reconcile with, I'm sure it's a tight state budget?
Yeah, well, right now we have a budget surplus, and we got to work through that because as of 2025, we had a tax reduction that takes full effect this year. We go down to 4.5% of our state income tax. So we're going to see how that works out. But the most important thing that affects us, and I'm looking for the people that I represent, is the low to moderate income communities with minorities and Hispanics. We're looking at the grocery tax. The grocery tax is one of the most fairest taxes we can cut to put money back into the people's pockets, the working class people and all people, you know, throughout our region and state.
So that gets into questions about your own legislative priorities in this upcoming year and how they reflect the concerns of your constituents in District 119. Plus, give us a brief overview of your district while you do that in the areas that are covered by it.
Pretty much my district, I represent West Gulfport, pretty much is predominantly African-American and Hispanic. So we are the people that's the labor force of the Mississippi tourism, gaming, and service industries. And in our place, we have a lot of public education, public schools that have improved over the last several years. But one thing we look at, how do we help strengthen not just the minority community, but the education of our kids from this community, because we don't receive the bulk of the funding that comes not just to our city, but to the state. And we have to find creative ways to make our people feel whole in this process. When you start talking about the things that affect the community as well as healthcare, diabetes, heart disease, and different things of that nature, that's some of the things that we look for. How do we improve these things with low healthcare, low insurance rates, and different things?
You talk quite a bit about those issues that are faced by low to moderate income Mississippians, primarily in Black, Latino communities that you represent in District 119. When we think of Mississippi, those of us living outside of Mississippi, we think of a very rural state. We also do think of those challenges, such as high poverty. And so how are you navigating and addressing those issues inside the legislature? How do you make the legislature and the state government overall aware of how severe those issues and those challenges can be?
One of the most important things we have to do when we're talking to our colleagues across the aisle, we got to make sure we're asking for what we need in our communities and our portions of the state, because if you don't ask, it does not get done. We also got to look at the living wage standpoint, the educational standpoint, and the health standpoint, because if you do not have a healthy workforce, you do not have a healthy living wage. And without a living wage, what is your tax base? Well, there's some of the things we have to let them understand. And also, we have to make sure that they understand the plight in which our constituents live, because it's not about us individually. It's not about the legislators. It's about the people that you represent, and you got to tell the people's story. In order to tell the people's story, you got to live and be around and work with the people, you know, because a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Mississippi, but Mississippi is more than what's projected. We're better than people, you know, give us credit for. You know, that working relationship it's an uphill fight, I don't believe in dark days because of my faith. You know, a person who got to live faith got a lot of faith in our world, you know. So that's one of the things we look at. We also look at the standpoint of workforce development. Where is this educated workforce coming from? It's good to have these big box organizations coming to the state. But if you do not have the people from that state trained up, how long is it going to really last? If that answers your question.
No, no, I appreciate that. It does. And you know, you are talking quite a bit about you're focusing on health issues, how much you need to address those in your district and throughout the state. I wonder also how environmental issues factor into that, especially you know, when you think about climate issues, global warming. You're a Gulf coastal state. Pollution, environmental justice challenges have also been a big issue in Mississippi. How much does that factor into the conversations that you're having, the concerns that you're trying to address for your constituents?
But one of the most important things from an environmental standpoint, I live in the coastal region of the state. So we have different parts of the state that affects us environmentally much more than in my district. But one of the most important things in our district is the different type of infrastructure issues that we have in the communities and the Black properties. That's more of an environmental issue that we have because being on the coast, we have our waterways, but not some of the most important things that we'll not play with a lot of industrial things from our standpoint. Now, different parts of the state, they have a high, you know, poverty rate in the, say, in certain parts of Mississippi, they are affected more than we are. We are affected from the standpoint, like I say, when they come from infrastructure issue, we come from like health and certain type of poor areas that does not have a great sanitation issue. You know, they don't have great garbage disposal and different things like that. That's pretty much the environmental consideration that we have. And then just making sure that we are not allowing them people to come and develop when they come to our retention ponds and you know, all water spouts in different ways. You know, that's something we have to protect because when they start to gentrify area, they look at the lowest area in which they can take over, manipulate, and make a bang for their buck. But we got to make sure that's not affecting our wetlands and our waterways.
You know, even more critically too, you have that challenge of addressing issues as a Black legislator in a legacy Confederate, legacy slaveholding state, right? And so, and the state's population is nearly 40% Black, yet Black residents there hold so little in terms of political leverage and power. How do you reconcile that?
So one of the most important things I look at from my standpoint, I look at a couple dates. I look at 1875, when the 15th Amendment. I look at also the 1890 Constitution. The 1890 Constitution, it was written or readdressed, however you want to see fit, where it's starting to take away not just the voting political power, but also the voting base and the voting strength that still affects us today with the high disenfranchisement of crime that we have in our state, keeping people from being able to vote again. And when it comes to the Confederate state, I say we have Confederate issues, but I wouldn't call us a Confederate state because at the end of the day, systems, policies has allowed us to push back on some of the things that affect the people generations before us. We just got to get out and exercise our right to vote. We got to make sure that we are doing and educating people when it comes to gerrymandering, misinformation, disinformation, and miscommunication. So that's how I push back, and also working with the people on the ground when it comes to GOTV, also telling the story and the history about 1965, 1964, you know, the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act. And we got to understand the importance of the things that affect them back then is still affecting us today, but not just in Mississippi, throughout this nation. You know, we look at this past election, it was more disinformation and misinformation, and you had more northern states and different states trying to be more conservative than the southern states. So that's what we got to look at. So when we say a Confederate state, we can say this can be a Confederate country off of the rhetoric in which is being spewed, you know, the different policies are being walked back, and the different things when it comes to not just voter suppression, but voter intimidation and voter manipulation.
You know, that history, thank you for raising that history. I appreciate that. That history is so important. and a revisitation of it is just absolutely critical, especially for young people. That was one of those features that was missing in this election, that revisitation of very important foundational history from that second Reconstruction, right, civil rights movement. Real quick too, before we get into that, I do have a question about that. But real quick before we get into that, you were speaking about voter disenfranchisement, and earlier on in 2024, you had this federal three-judge panel that had ordered your legislature, Mississippi legislature, to create more Black majority House and state Senate districts in time for your 2025 session. What's the status on that, if you know? And will that really help really strengthen the Black political situation there in Mississippi?
What it's going to do is still a work in progress because the courts deem that it's appropriate to redraw the district lines. But as you know, we live in a state where the Republicans have a supermajority. So we got to pretty much wait on their timeline, just like with the ballot initiative. But we have had and continue to have several meetings on it and making sure that the districts that have to be redrawn and the people who already represent those districts, how will they be affected from the Black voting age population, and also making sure that we are not just gaining seats, but we are gaining leverage to making sure that everybody has a free and fair chance to win that seat. Because, when you redraw a district, yes, it's supposed to be an African-American district, a majority African-American district, but we have seen through disenfranchisement, we have seen through gerrymandering that it don't turn out the way you expect it to if you don't educate the people. So one of the most important things is not just drawing a district, but educating the people and making sure the people is poised to get out and vote when that times happen. But we're looking at making sure our speaker, our minority House speaker, is making sure that those timelines be appropriate, deemed necessary, that the court has put out.
How discouraged are voters in your district? I mean, did you see a lot of that in this past 2024 election? Just the level of discouragement. I mean, or is it more just, as you were saying a few moments earlier, just an educational effort, that you have to push forward with, that you have to pursue, just talking to people more about the Voting Rights Act. We're coming up on the 60th anniversary of that, which is 60 years ago where we got full voting rights. Civil Rights Act we're just going through the 60th anniversary of that, 75th anniversary of Brown versus Board of Ed. So, these are these very foundational, necessary tenets that are supposed to improve Black and other minority political and economic conditions. But how much discouragement did you see in 2024? How do you reverse that trend?
Well, one of the things when I say discouragement, I said we had people energized. They were discouraged after the election actually took place. But when you're looking at leading up to it, we had people very energized. They were very enthused and get out and vote, even through the misinformation and disinformation. And some of the most important things you'll see right now, a lot of people through this holiday season see that they got it wrong. The ones who stayed on the sideline, the one who's on the fence, and some who decided to go a different route, they see just how much they affected themselves through the false fallacies of the information that was put out by the other side. And one of the things that people in my community, like I said, we're a community of faith. So we believe a shot in the dark is better than no shot at all. And we're going to continue to fight, you know what I'm saying? Because in my area, in the area in which I stayed, this one community normally votes at 300-400 people, 500 max. They voted at over 1,000 people went out to vote. So we very, very energized and enthused about what's happening because we have to get the people the information. And when it comes to the young folk, we got to make sure that the information they're receiving on their social media platforms is not just fact checked, but put them in a situation, okay, you said this is what you heard. Okay, does this affect your pocketbook? How is this affecting your mother who cannot go to the hospital? How is this affecting your family that you say y'all can't receive food? How is this affecting the things that deal with your everyday way of life? And you also understand this most important thing, the algorithms. Who control the algorithms? Who is paying for that platform in which you're getting your information from? And we just got to make them understand, like, hey, you've been duped. Did you fact check who doing this? Did you understand which social media platform, who paying for that social media platform? Where that information coming from? So what we got to do is not just make it more palatable to them, but we got to put them in that situation, put them in the driver's seat and say, okay, you say your life is so bad. Who said your life is bad? Let's look at it. You got the laws and policies in this state that you're saying is holding you back. You saying the federal government is holding you back. Let's look at the local. Let's look at the state. So before you do that, how is that affecting you? Let's look at your educational system. You have less teachers right now in your kids' classroom than you have when you was going to school. Let's look at the job opportunities. Let's look at the living wages. But these certain individuals being in power for eons over these communities, this state, and this area, how are they help you? You can't tell me that this one section is bad, but you're still getting over police. You can't tell me that the commodities, eggs, milk, and thing is so bad, but you just went and spent out everything you had on a Christmas holiday. You know, those are some of the things we got to let them see.
And real quick, too, Representative, what are those industries of the future in Mississippi? I know you mentioned that your district focuses quite a bit. It's the central workforce for the tourism industry in Mississippi, but what are those industries of the future that you're seeing over the horizon that present all sorts of economic and quality of life opportunities for your constituents?
But one of the most important things, we got to tap into the AI. We have to, because AI has a hand in everything we do in this part of the world. Also, we got to look at things from IT standpoint. And then we also got to get back to making sure people have skills that operates in the geographic area, which was construction. You know, we have to get auto mechanics. We got to get the basics back down pat. Because we start talking about we losing our way of life in our workforce because small Black businesses drive small economies and small communities. Until we bring them back, like our community, we don't even have a grocery store on this side of our city. Not the community in our city. We haven't had a grocery store in over 30 years. That's some of the things we fight for, even though that's at a municipal level. It still got to get highlighted at the state level to show them where we are missing the mark. We also got to get to the standpoint we show them that if you have more innovative workforce, a dynamic workforce, you can bring in the different Amazons, you can bring in things and technology that not only deepens our channel and our waterway, but logistical apparatus that push for more logistics in and pushes out, that creates jobs. So some of the things we're looking at is from an innovative approach is more IT, a more technology-driven workforce. We're also looking at things that's going to strengthen our small businesses in the Black communities.
All right, we've been talking with State Representative Jeffrey Hulum III, representing the 119th Legislative District in the state of Mississippi. And you can, where can we get more information on you, Representative? What's you have a website we can go to?
But pretty much, I'm an open book. You know, I do a lot of things. It's gonna sound crazy. I do a lot of things on just basic Facebook, Jeffrey Hulum III, because I want all people to be able to get the information. When we have things that come out in legislature, instead of having just a state representative page, I just put on basic social media, basic Facebook, everybody get it. I also have a lot of town hall meetings, but if you go to Jeffrey Hulum III on Facebook, everything I do is on there because I'm a man of the people working for the people. I think everything should be streamlined and people shouldn't have to dig and find multifaceted things just to get the information from you, you know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So go to Facebook, search for Jeffrey Hulum III. You can also go to legislature.ms.gov to learn more about Mississippi State Legislature. Thanks again, Representative, for your time. That concludes this episode. I'm Charles Ellison, your executive producer and host. A warm round of gratitude to our partner, the Council of State Governments. More information on them at csg.org. Also, thanks to senior producer Raven Robinson. Until then, find this episode and more while you're, of course, subscribing at thebnote.com. Take care and be safe, everyone.